Okay. Last lecture, summing it all up. Here we go. I thought this meme was very pertinent to right now because of quarantine. That just made me laugh. Okay. Topic 15. We're going to wrap it all up. We're going to get to the end, which is nowish. So, anatomically modern humans are us. Homo sapiens, we're going to also use AMH, anatomically modern humans, right? So here we're talking about when we evolved in Africa, to then when we moved into the Near East, then into Europe and Asia, and then finally into the New World, relatively speaking. Might have even been to the New World 30,000 years ago. Um, Jury's still out on that, as far as I know. All right, so what do we look like? So we have the largest brain, right? So a larger brain than all previous taxa, taller cranium, vertical forehead, that nice vertical forehead, remember, compared to all the previous taxa, but specifically to the archaics because of our big brain that ballooned. We have a smaller face and jaw, and that awesome distinct chin that pops out. So postcranially, we are more gracile. So gracile is like a combo of graceful and fragile. So let's say compare this to Neanderthals, right, who were like super stocky and big. We are a lot more gracile compared to them and compared to all the other hominin taxa. So the reason that our face and jaw evolved to be smaller and why we evolved to be more fragile, more gracile, is because we rely on tools more instead of like our mouths and like ripping into stuff and manhandling stuff. Um, we can use tools. We can use our brains to create tools to do more things. So I chose not to go into any more tool technologies, but uh, as you can imagine, tools get more sophisticated. So anything that we talked about before, it's just going to get, more and more sophisticated. We're going to talk a little bit about um, cave painting and stuff in a minute, but a lot of reliance on tools. So now we have evidence of small villages. So not only just shelters, but shelters together, small villages, complex shelters, definitely the fur clothing, um, cooperative hunting and fishing, and fishing even, which is really interesting, right? Fish hooks. We actually find evidence of fish hooks. Figurines, making figurines, painting on caves. So at this point, I usually ask my students, which I just want you to think. Obviously, you can't answer me or you can shout it out. I think Grams wants to get in on the action. Can you stand her? She's ridiculous. I love this animal. Um, so I usually ask my students, okay, if you are sitting around and you are making a figurine and painting on a cave, what are you not doing? And the answer that I look for is you're not worried if you're going to get eaten by something. Is a lion about to attack me? What am I going to eat today? Where am I going to get water today? Where am I going to sleep today? Where is everybody else? Not worried about it. You have time to make a figurine and paint. You're not worried about survival. So this is a big difference, right? We're seeing a shift. We never saw this in any of the previous taxa, right? It was always like, I'm not trying to die, and I just need to keep myself alive and keep my family alive, if depending on the taxa. So this is a big deal. So we're starting to see, like, I don't want to call it free time, but some free time. Somebody else is going to bring me some food. I can get water. We have this beautiful home. I'm wearing a fur. It's great. We're so and so's fishing. It's great. So this is a different concept. This is a different brain, right? And then we finally really do see more direct evidence of putting goods in the grave with loved ones, with the dead. So as they're burying, they're thinking, again, this is like a way to inform us potentially that they were thinking of the afterlife. What they were thinking, I don't know. So tools, right? Again, much more elaborate. Blades, saws, the materials that they're using, anything that they can. So remember, I showed you in the beginning the map of where at the first anatomically modern humans, how they moved around. And it's basically, think of it this way. The idea is, like when we talked about the Neanderthals, they were in Europe. Anatomically modern humans eventually were everywhere, right? Excuse me. So it's basically anatomically modern humans could adapt to any environment successfully. So no matter where they were, if there were a lot of animals that they could hunt, they would hunt. If there were lakes where they could fish, they would fish. If there was stone, they would use it. If they could use antlers, they would use antlers. If they could use ivory, bone, whatever the materials were, whatever the food items are, they would use them. They can adapt to many different environments, many different situations. And then lastly, this atlatl is really cool. So this guy's throwing a spear, right? You need to hold it relatively like in the middle so that you can balance it and throw it. But the atlatl is like a spear thrower. It helps you. So it's this little piece right here where it attaches to the very back of the spear, and as you throw it, you gain sort of more power, more velocity, because you're instead of actually throwing it, I have nothing to hold, but if this is the length of it and I'm holding it here, I'm missing the power from the very end of it. So if I can hold it in the middle, but still at the very end, whip it and have that last push, it goes faster, maybe straighter if you're good at it, so it actually helped, and it goes farther, right? So it helped sort of even intensify and sophisticate spear throwing. So here's back to the Neanderthal thing from before. We're going to talk about it now from the perspective of anatomically modern humans. So remember, Neanderthals and anatomically modern humans in Europe, right? In Europe, were in Europe at the same time. Remember, anatomically modern humans were in other places too. So there's the appearance of anatomically modern humans in Europe, then the disappearance of Neanderthals in Europe. So what happened, right? There's something happened. We already talked about the admixture. So the question is, were anatomically modern humans better adapted to the climate of the last ice age in Europe than Neanderthals? Now, if we think about morphologically, not really, because Neanderthals were the short, stocky ones that were cold adapted. And here come these anatomically modern humans that are fragile, gracile, and, taller and thinner. So not really well adapted for cold. However, with the anatomically modern humans comes their more complex brain. Oh, and one thing I did want to mention when I talked about Neanderthals is they get a bad rap. Like everybody says Neanderthals are stupid. Neanderthals were extremely smart. Anatomically modern humans are smarter, but Neanderthals, they were able to really make some accomplishments, to do some great things, and they lived for a long time, but we were smarter. So with our brain and with our technology, we were able to, so maybe we're not better physically adapted to the cold, but we come with complex shelters and better clothes and better ways to use our environment. We can look in the environment and use more resources from the environment, any environment, than the Neanderthals could. So ultimately, the anatomically modern humans lived at higher population densities, had longer lifespans, and even though the Neanderthals, we found evidence of broken bones that were healed, which is cool. They were helping each other, most likely. In anatomically modern humans, there's just less injury. So, less disease, physiologically healthier to begin with. Um, okay, I'm gonna stop it there and then do a part two. So now we're gonna talk about our origins, modern human origins. So the origins of anatomically modern humans. So take a step back. We talked about Homo erectus was our first out of Africa, right? So Homo erectus was in Africa and then moved into Asia. So there are two hypotheses. Here's the first one. Call it the multi-regional hypothesis. So with Homo erectus, with our first out of Africa, right? Homo erectus was in Africa, Asia, and Europe, and evolved in each of those locations into archaics and Neanderthals in Europe independently. Second, those archaics and Neanderthals in each of those geographic locations evolved into modern humans independently. So that means that the out of Africa with erectus was the only out of Africa. That was it. That was like our first and only step out of Africa into the rest of the world. And our origins would have to go back to that Homo erectus coming out of Africa. So that would mean that modern humans basically evolved 3 separate times. If you guys can remember parallel evolution, convergent evolution, analogous traits, it was the whole like wings of birds, bats, and butterflies. And it's just like there happen to be traits that if you just look at maybe phonetics, if you just look at phenotype, and you want to create a phylogeny, you can create an incorrect phylogeny if you don't take the evolutionary path into account of how did they evolve those traits, right? So you'd put together birds, bats, and butterflies as having their least common ancestor would have wings when they absolutely did not. Wings evolved 3 separate times. So this hypothesis, this multi-regional hypothesis, is saying that modern humans evolved 3 separate times. So we would be almost like 3 different species, right? And we would have very consistent regional differences. So Europeans, Africans, and Asians would be very different. Now, we don't really have enough time or connection to really talk about, because some of you might be like, yeah, Europeans, Africans, and Asians look different. But we don't. We actually don't. We all look very much the same. And I might be able to throw that in at the end a little bit. But we are all a lot more similar than anybody even realizes. So the thought that humans evolved 3 separate times, we would look way different than we already do. So the multi-regional hypothesis does not hold a lot of weight. The replacement out of Africa hypothesis is a little more valid. It's okay. Let me explain this first. So with it number 1 is the same. We have our first out of Africa with Homo erectus. That happened, right? Homo erectus is in Africa, leaves Africa, goes to Asia and Europe, and evolves into archaics and Neanderthals. That happened. But remember, just because I'm saying that erectus left Africa, it's not like every individual left Africa. There's still individuals in Africa, right? So the individuals, the Homo erectus that stayed in Africa that evolved into archaics in Africa, the African archaics, those individuals evolved into African modern humans. So at the same time, Neanderthals are evolving and the archaics are moving in the other parts of the world. But back home in Africa, we've got Erectus evolving into African archaics, evolving into African modern humans. Those African modern humans now leave Africa. So this is our second out of Africa. Leave Africa, go into Asia, go into Europe, and encounter Neanderthals and the other archaics. So that's how anatomically modern humans encountered Neanderthals. Neanderthals were, what's the word I'm looking for? Descendants of Erectus when Erectus first left. So Erectus leaves, goes into Europe in this example, then evolves into Neanderthals. While that's happening, back in Africa, African Erectus evolves into African archaics, evolves into African anatomically modern humans, and then those individuals leave Africa, look around, and they're like, who are you guys? And that's how they met. So then those African anatomically modern humans, when they left, they replaced, outcompeted all other individuals that were the previous descendants of Homo erectus when Homo erectus left Africa. I hope that makes sense. It's so much nicer when I can really talk to you guys about it. I'm also I can send you a cool little movie that I like. It's a little illustration of it, which is very helpful. So this suggests that all modern humans, all of us, everybody alive today, evolved from a single origin from those African archaics that evolved into African modern humans. So we all go back to Africa. And so also the European and Asian Homo erectus, archaics, Neanderthals, they all go extinct, right? We don't see them anymore. Some more evidence for this, and ultimately it's both models together a little bit. It's mostly the replacement out of Africa model with admixture, right? Because as our African anatomically modern humans left Africa, there was some admixture, right? But then all the other taxa went extinct. So the oldest anatomically modern human fossils, we find them in Africa. All modern humans are very similar, all very different from the archaic Homo sapiens. So this also suggests the same origin for all. And it's very cool when you look at modern, like extant human genetics, the most genetic variation actually comes from Africans because Africans have that original variation. So here we could look at it like this. So here, let's check out this graphic. So anatomically modern humans are evolving in Africa, right? First, evolving over long periods of time. Evolving. Okay, now we have still one species, right? But just more variety, more variation, right? So these are African modern humans, African anatomically modern humans with lots of variation. Now, this goes back to topic 5 with our 4 forces of evolution. Remember I said I would pull that genetic drift, that bottleneck effect back? Here it is. So we have all this variation in Africa that's evolved over a long period of time. And then these individuals are going to disperse from Africa, leave Africa, and populate the rest of the globe. Now, of all of this variation, we only get a little bit of it. So here you can see all of the individuals that were evolving in Africa have more genetic variation than the rest of the world because of this bottleneck effect. So, right, that's the last slide. Anatomically modern humans are all over the old world by 30,000 years ago and then migrated to the new world by 12,000 years ago, maybe as far back as 30,000 years ago when we had our last ice age and the sea levels dropped and those land bridges were exposed. So unclear. But that's it. Give yourselves a round of applause. You made it through the cement. Oh, Grams is like, woohoo!